Pour one out for Sean Strickland's last title run. UFC Houston takes place this weekend, and today I am back with a new series that I want to bring you guys on called Most to Lose, Most to Gain, UFC Houston edition. As you can see here on the right hand side, we have got a graph that we're going to be filling in that will tell us how good or bad a win would be and how good or bad a loss would be for the key fighters involved in this event. We're going to start with the main event and we're going to end with the first fight of the main card. And without further ado, we're going to jump straight into it. And dude, if you've got one, pour one out for Sean Strickland's last title run. Sink or swim here, boys. Sink or swim here for Sean Strickland. Now, as I said, this is most likely Sean Strickland's last title run, depending on if he can kind of pull it back at the later stages in his career. He is 34 years old, and he's facing Fluffy Hernandez. Now, when we look at what could happen with a win over Fluffy Hernandez, Strickland's kind of in position to start asking for the title shot. So for the winning outcome, he's going to be in the green. Now, when we look at the losing outcome, the question is this. With a loss against Fluffy Hernandez, is it going to knock him back too much? I don't really think so. I think Fluffy Hernandez is a surging contender at the moment. He is prime position for a title shot, as is Sean Strickland. So we're going to be putting Sean Strickland straight here. The losing outcome's not that bad. You don't have to worry about getting cut or anything, Sean. With a win, it's really good. With a loss, not too bad. So we're going to be putting him in the green. And we're going to be moving straight on to his opponent, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. Now, I think the UFC want Anthony Hernandez to win this fight. I think it's pretty obvious. And I think with a win, this guy's almost guaranteed a title shot if they don't go with Imavov, which I think they probably are going to do. But for whatever reason, if that doesn't happen, Anthony Hernandez with a win is right there. So we're going to be putting him above Sean Strickland. And in my opinion, if Anthony Hernandez loses to Sean Strickland, it's still not the end of the world. The argument and the conversation will be, oh, he lost to a former champion. He's still proving himself. We're going to give him another shot at some big name. So I think that in terms of this list, there's no other place to put Anthony Hernandez than in the green on the losing outcome and the green in the winning outcome. Pretty obvious to me for this one. We're not going to waste any time on this one. We're going to be moving straight on to the co-main event of the evening, which is Geoff Neal versus Uros Medic. Now, I'll get on to Medic in a minute, whether or not he deserves this fight. But on the side of Geoff Neal, this could be pretty bad for him. Uros Medic is unranked, and Geoff Neal is ranked. He's ranked 12th at the moment in the welterweight division. So if he loses to Uros Medic, it's not really that good for him. I don't think he'll be cut out of the rankings with a loss over Uros Medic, because the likelihood is if he loses to Medic, it's going to be by some freak KO. I can't really see Medic outclassing Geoff Neal over 3 rounds. You never know. This could age terribly. But I think with a win over Medic, is it going to do much for Geoff Neal? I don't think so. So we're not going to be putting him anywhere high here. I think it's just pretty much dead center. With a lose, it's not good. It's not bad because of how I think the loss may come if he does lose. But a win just doesn't really do much for Geoff Neal. So we're going to be putting him slap bang in the middle here. But yeah, a win over Uros Medic doesn't do too much for Geoff Neal. A loss against Uros Medic really doesn't do any good for Geoff Neal either. So we're putting him slap bang in the middle. Now on the flip side, when we talk about Uros Medic, now I don't think he deserves this fight. There's other fighters on this card. I mean, Punahele Soriano knocked his ass out 1 year and 1 month ago. So I don't know why he's not fucking getting this fight, because he is also on this card. However, that being said, if Uros Medic beats Geoff Neal, he's going to have a significantly higher gain than Geoff Neal would get if he won over Uros Medic. And the argument would be that if Uros Medic loses to Geoff Neal, it's a big jump up in competition. I don't think the worst case scenario would go down for Uros Medic. I don't think he's going to get cut. The UFC are prioritizing violence, and this guy is a finisher. He is finish or be finished. As I said, with a win over Geoff Neal, this is really good for him in his career. He's going to be ranked. He's going to be in the mix at welterweight. And we all know what a Shark Tank welterweight is. So the likelihood is that he's going to get a good matchup following this. With a loss, it's not the end of the world because it's Geoff Neal and it's a big step up. So we're going to be putting him pretty much in the middle between Geoff Neal and Sean Strickland here. I think a win would be really good for him. I think a loss wouldn't be too bad for him. So this is the right position for me that I'm going to be putting him on this graph. And we're going to be moving swiftly on to the next fight of the night, or the third fight from the top, which is Dan Ige versus Melquizael Costa. We're going to start with Dan Ige because Melquizael, this dude, he's slowly climbing, he's slowly getting there. Dan Ige's kind of just been the name at featherweight, the ranked name. He's been ranked for fucking years. If you beat Dan Ige, you go on to the next level. The Dan Ige test, some may say. Now, where to place Dan Ige on this? Dan Ige is currently on a one-fight losing streak. He's just lost to Patricio Pitbull 6 months ago, and that was by decision. Now, Dan Ige, as I said, is currently ranked. He's ranked 14th in the featherweight division. But I think in terms of this fight, if he loses to Melquizael Costa, we very may well see Dan Ige out of the rankings for the first time in a long time. So, if he loses, it's not good. It's definitely not good. We know that. He's not anywhere up here. It's not good. But if he beats Melquizael Costa, I know Melquizael Costa is unranked. However, Melquizael Costa is probably one of the best unranked guys in the UFC at the moment. So he's going to gain some stock. I don't know if he's going to be moving up in the rankings at all. He's got Kevin Vallejos above him, who's obviously just came off of a really good win against Giga Chikadze. So I don't know if he's going to be moving up in the rankings with a win over Melquizael Costa. So the winning outcome's not crazy either. It seems like this is not really the greatest outcome for Dan Ige. As I said, loses to Melquizael Costa, out of the rankings. Beats Melquizael Costa, not going to be moving up in the rankings at all, really. So I think we're going to be putting him right next to Geoff Neal. You know what I mean? I think if he loses to Melquizael, it's probably going to be worse than if Geoff Neal loses to Uros Medic. Both ranked fighters versus unranked fighter. Both ranked fighter versus finisher. But in my opinion, the worst outcome will probably come from Dan Ige, between these two anyway. And on that note, we are going to be moving on to his opponent, who is Melquizael Costa. Now, Melquizael Costa is very rapidly ascending in popularity in the UFC and within the UFC universe because this guy's an exciting fighter. He's getting finishes, he's taking difficult fights, he's being active. He fought Morgan Charrier 2 months ago where he KO'd him with a head kick. Before that, he beat Julian Erosa, and Julian Erosa's pretty tricky. Before that, he fought the prospect killer, Christian Rodriguez, and he beat him. And it just goes on. Submitted Andre Fili. Submitted Shailan Nurdenbeke. This guy's on the radar for a lot of guys. And I think when it comes to him versus Dan Ige, with a win over Dan Ige, this guy is going to really propel himself forward, right? He's going to be a ranked featherweight. He's going to start getting these big names. As I said, with a win over Dan Ige, we might see a Melquizael Costa versus Patricio Pitbull. We might see a Melquizael Costa versus Josh Emmett, Brian Ortega. There's names for this guy to fight, which will massively propel him in the UFC featherweight division. So with a win over Dan Ige, this guy's stock is going to rise massively. Equally, if he loses to Dan Ige, I don't think it's going to be that bad at all. So once again, fighting a ranked fighter who's been ranked for a long, long time. I think if Melquizael Costa loses to Dan Ige, people will go, oh, okay, one night off, whatever. We've seen what this guy can do, and we've seen what this guy can do recently against pretty decent competition. So I'm going to put Melquizael Costa right here. If he loses, it's not the end of the world. If he wins, this guy is on a fucking rocket ship in the featherweight division. Featherweight needs to be a bit more exciting. It's kind of a little bit stale at the moment. We've got Gene Silva, we've got Volk, and we've got Diego Lopez at the top. Not a lot else is happening. So we're going to be putting Melquizael Costa right here. I think that is the right spot for him on this graph. And we're going to be moving on to the next fight down, which is Serghei Spivac. You know, he's a great fighter, Serghei Spivac. Well-rounded. Everyone knows him. Been ranked for years. Serghei Spivac. Serghei Spivac is going to be fighting Ante Delija. And somehow, I don't know how, Serghei Spivac is ranked 7th. He's facing Ante Delija, who's currently ranked 9th behind Gelton Almeida. And we all know what's happened to that motherfucker. Alright? So, rankings-wise, this is pretty big for the heavyweight division. Now, for either of these guys, in my opinion, just based on how stale the heavyweight division is, with a win for either of these guys is going to be pretty good, right? However, I think in the case of Spivac, coming off 2 losses, one of those losses being to Gelton Almeida, who has now been cut, and in my opinion, Spivac isn't the most exciting of fighters, right? With a loss, I don't think it's going to be very good. But with a win, I think it will be quite good, just based on the division of heavyweight. We'll drop him down a little bit, because there are other names at heavyweight who are way closer to a title shot than Spivac. You know what I'm saying? Spivac coming off of a fucking 2-fight losing streak. But if this guy loses to Delija, who is also coming off of a loss against Wilder Cortez Acosta. Both of these guys have just recently lost to Wilder Cortez Acosta. With a loss against Delija, I think it's pretty bad for Spivac. I think he's going to be dropping down in the rankings fairly significantly. And the guys that Spivac are going to be fighting, if he loses, you're looking at Derek Lewis, Taliesin Teixeira, Shamil Gaziev, Volta Walker maybe. And in my opinion, those are not good fights for Serghei Spivac. So with a loss, this ain't good. With a win, it's alright. You're putting yourself up there in a division that's completely stale and quiet. So I think Serghei Spivac deserves to be here. You don't want to lose, but with a win, the sun's coming out. You know what I mean? And we're going to be moving straight on to his opponent, Ante Triple Nipple. Shout out you guys if you know what I mean. Delija. Now, Ante Delija is a face that the UFC want to push. I know that for sure. They wanted new faces in the heavyweight division. Delia's got a wealth of experience. He's 26-7 as a professional MMA fighter. So this guy has got what the UFC want when it comes to fighters. And he's got a very high finish rate. 12 wins by KO, 7 wins by submission, 7 wins by decision. But overall, Delija is a finisher. Now, with the win over Spivac, I would say in the heavyweight division, we would probably see Delija either get the Kuniev fight. I know Kuniev probably shouldn't be fighting down because he's just beaten Jelton Almeida, but that fight was boring as fuck. Boring as fuck. So I think if he wins against Serghei Spivac, he's going to be looking up the rankings, obviously. We got Rizvan Kuniev currently 6th. We got Wilder Cortez Acosta rematch, which is probably completely out of the equation because he's just continuing to win and continuing to do bits in the heavyweight division when no one thought he was going to do it. Nonetheless, Ante Delija is a face that the UFC want to push. And I think based on previous UFC matchmaking, they won't really give a fuck too much about the division when it comes to new faces, with it being a stale division, obviously. With a loss against Spivac, it's not looking good for bro. With a win against Spivac, new opportunities are opening up for Delija. He can try and angle for a Wilder Cortez Acosta rematch just because of how the first fight went. He had incredible success until he didn't, obviously, if you've seen that fight. So I think Delija deserves to be here. A loss is really bad. However, a loss for Spivac, you might be getting cut, brother. I know you're in the rankings. Maybe not get cut because they've just cut Jelton Almeida. How many fucking ranked heavyweights are they going to cut in 2026? Cut the division. No, you don't have to cut the division. It might happen. They were talking about flyweight. You never know. Heavyweight is in a fucking shamble of a position at the moment. Like really, really bad. Heavyweight is just dog shit at the moment. However, as I said, it's kind of a division where with a win, you're going to propel yourself. With a loss, it's pretty bad. So I think Delija deserves to belong here. He's going to stay here. We're going to be putting Delija there. And we're going to be moving on to the next fight down, which is Jacobe Smith versus Josiah Harrell. We're going to be talking about Josiah Harrell in a minute because this guy's got a pretty fucking crazy story. But Jacobe Smith, currently 11-0. Currently on a 5-fight finish streak. And he's facing Josiah Harrell, who was supposed to be fighting JDM back in 2023. We're going to get onto that in a minute, as I said. But I think for two unranked welterweights, these guys have both got quite a lot of steam. Josiah Harrell for the story and the fact that he originally was meant to fight JDM in 2023, as I said. He couldn't fight because of some brain injury that had come to light, that he had had an operation on. He basically had like a brain aneurysm, if I'm not mistaken. Then wasn't able to debut. Now he's coming back. And since he's been away, he's gone 4-0 and he's made a great example of himself. Now, when we look at Jacobe Smith, in my opinion, if he wins against Josiah Harrell, it's not going to be too crazy for him, right? He's winning against a debut fighter as a fighter who is on a 11-fight win streak, I believe. Yeah, he's 11-0. He's on an 11-fight win streak professionally, and he's facing someone who is debuting. Blur the lines. I know Josiah Harrell has been doing a lot outside of the UFC, as I said, but in the casual fans' eyes and the UFC's eyes, he's winning against a debut fighter. So it doesn't do too much for his stock, right? And then equally, if he loses to Josiah Harrell, you're going to see that in one take, but I took about 5 tries to fucking say equally if he loses to Josiah Harrell. Fuck me. If he loses to Josiah Harrell, a debuting fighter, it's not good either. So I think Jacobe Smith's probably just going to sit in the middle of Danny Ige and Geoff Neal. If he wins, debuting fighter. Guy who had a brain aneurysm. You can see the fucking stories. I'm not the You can see the stories. And then as well, if he loses, that ranking that you really wanted, brother, maybe a little bit further away than you think. And you're 30 years old. You are in your prime. So you should be putting on the best representation of your fighting skill at this point in time. You know what I mean? I think we're going to be putting him here. I think this makes sense. And we're going to be moving on to his opponent, Josiah Harrell, who, as I said, had some crazy brain aneurysm, stroke. I don't know what it was, but I believe he required brain surgery, which was why he wasn't originally allowed to fight JDM back in 2023. And I think the fight got cancelled on fight week, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if he comes into the UFC on his debut after all of these stories and gets a win over Jacobe Smith, I think this is pretty massive for him. I think this is pretty massive for Josiah Harrell because Jacobe Smith is a surging prospect. You know what I mean? This guy has been beating a lot of people and he's been beating them dominantly, finishing them in the UFC. Now, Josiah Harrell, if he comes in and beats Jacobe Smith, he is going to have a way bigger positive outcome with a win than Jacobe Smith, without a shadow of doubt, in my opinion. And I think equally, going with the storyline of how everything's been panning out, the fact that outside of the UFC, he's gone 4-0 since having his cancelled fight against JDM, fuck knows what would have happened if he fought JDM in 2023. Thank God that didn't happen. And that may have been the best thing to happen in his career to date, because we don't know where this guy would be if he fought JDM in 2023. I think with a loss, it's not too bad as well. I don't think it's too bad. I think with a win over Jacobe Smith, this is massive for his career. I don't think it would be as good of a win than Ante Delija, if Ante Delija beats Serghei Spivac, but I definitely don't think it would be as bad of a loss than him. I think with a loss against Jacobe Smith, okay, Jacobe Smith, he's a guy we all know. He's a very, very good fighter. He's a good fighter. You know what I mean? He's a good fighter. I think this is a perfect spot for Josiah Harrell. If he loses, not a lot's going to happen. You know what I mean? If he wins, that's really good for him in his career. He might, I don't know if he's going to be cracking the rankings just yet, but I think he'll be in a position where he can definitely angle for a ranked fight, potentially. And you know what? I'm really excited for the debut of Josiah Harrell. I am. Storyline behind it. We go back to what we were talking about in the last video. I'm a big fucking sucker for storylines in mixed martial arts. And this one comes with a big, big storyline. I'm sure the fucking commentators are going to be eating it up when they say, Josiah Harrell, man. You know, Josiah Harrell, previously, he was going to fight JDM, but he nearly fucking died. And now he's back. And he might be beating Jacobe Smith. I don't know. I'm not putting my bets on yet, but we never know. We shall see. A win would be huge. A loss wouldn't be that bad. It would be bad, obviously, for the fucking career of an MMA fighter, but in retrospect, not the end of the world. Josiah Harrell is going to be sitting snugly in the middle of here, and we are going to be moving on to Zachary Reese versus Michel Domelador. How do you say it? Domelador Pereira. Fucking, just call me fucking. I'm basically Brazilian at this stage, dude. Zachary Reese versus Michel Pereira. Now, Zachary Reese is, in my opinion, up there in terms of some of the most... Am I going to say Zachary Reese is one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC? I don't know! He's fucking exciting. Zachary Reese is a very exciting fighter. Usually finish or be finished. You know what I mean? For the most part. As of recent, anyway. Now, Zachary Reese is facing Michel Pereira. And Michel Pereira... I'm going to continue to do the pronunciation this way because it feels good. Feels good. Michel Pereira is on a 3-fight losing streak. And in those 3 fights, he lost by finish in 2 of them. It's not a good look. And it's especially not a good look if you're beating him. I mean, it's not a bad look, but if Zachary Reese beats Michel Pereira is probably getting cut. We know that. So, in terms of the winning outcome, he ain't going to be up here. It's kind of low ranking. And I think equally, if Zachary Reese loses by fluky, weird Michel Pereira finish, I veered from it, then it's a really fucking tough loss, right? There's no real better place to put him than down in this bottom left-hand side. Now, we will reserve a space down here. Give me a minute. We will reserve a space down there. But Zachary Reese, It's not too good. With a win over Michel Pereira, it's like, it is what it fucking is. You beat Michel Pereira, 4-fight losing streak at this stage. And with a loss against him, you might just both end up getting cut. You won't. Zachary Reese is not going to get cut at this stage, I don't think. He's still excited, but with a loss over Pereira, that's bad. With a win against Pereira, people aren't really going to give a fuck because they kind of expect it. You know what I mean? I know Zachary Reese is an underdog going into this fight. How is Zachary Reese an underdog going into this fight? That is crazy. Zachary Reese should not be an underdog against Michel Pereira. I know it's pretty much even. Zachary Reese is a plus 120. But fucking hell. Goodness me. Zachary Reese is going to stay down here. If he beats Michel Pereira, If he loses against Pereira, it's not good. Really not good. So Zachary Reese is going to stay firmly here. And we're going to be moving on to the last fighter that we're going to be talking about. And holy shit. There was a point in time where this guy, dude, he was doing backflips off the cage. He was doing backflips. I was fucking gooning over Zabit and his fucking athletic abilities in my last video. But Michel Pereira, I was saying as well with Zabit, that all of those fancy flashy moves come at a price. Zabit's big glaring weakness in his game was always his gas tank. Michel Pereira dies when he gets tired. Like, really, really badly. He fought Kyle Dorcas in his last fight. Got KO'd 5 months ago. He fought Abbas Magomedov before that. Got decisioned. And this was the fight where Michel Pereira gassed out so badly. Michel Pereira, when he fought Abbas Magomedov, really, really put a bad look on himself. And before that, he fought Fluffy Hernandez. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Lost by ground and pound. But Fluffy Hernandez, there's a reason why he's up here at the moment. There's a reason why he's main eventing on this card. You know what I'm saying? So I can't really be too prejudiced on that because before that, he did beat Geoff Pereira by submission. But then again, it's Geoff Pereira. And then before that, he beat Mikhail Oleksiejczuk by submission. And that is, in my opinion, a very good win. So I'm not fully shunning Michel Pereira. There was a point in time where this guy was one of my favourite fighters to watch. However, when we look at this matchup against Zachary Reese and we look at the eventualities that might come from this, if you lose to Zachary Reese, you're then on a 4-fight losing streak. If you beat Zachary Reese as a favourite, now this does actually play into it. I know I was raging about it a minute ago, but he is the favourite. So if he beats Zachary Reese, kind of expected. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like, oh my God, Michel Pereira snapped his massive lose streak. Oh my God, against Zachary Reese, he's a monster. He's a favourite going into this fight. He is a favourite into this fight. So with a win, no one really is going to care. Because apparently a vast majority of people are expecting it to happen. With a loss, enjoy the PFL, buddy. Jelton Almeida is going to be waiting for you in the Sao Paulo airport. You know what I mean? So I think that there's no other position to put our boy Michel Pereira than bottom left. Underwhelming outcome if he wins. To a lot of people, not me. I'm fucking excited for this fight. I'm really excited for this fight. This is, in my opinion, one of the most exciting fights on the card. And that might sound crazy, but I'm visionary. I'm visualizing the Michel Pereira of old. Now, something to obviously note is Michel Pereira has just gone through a divorce. That might explain why he's on a 3-fight losing streak. I'm not chalking it up to that. But apparently, what I've heard is Michel Pereira got found to have a side ting. His wife found out, and then he had to go through a divorce. And that's the story on Michel Pereira's personal life at the moment. That's all out of the way, apparently. Now the divorce is out of the way. He's a free man. He's free to roam. He's free to train. He's free to do all this shit. So you never know. We might get a banger of a matchup here with 2 finishers. I'm going to say finishers because when you zoom out, they are finishers in their own right. But like I said, with a loss, this is bad. With a win, no one's going to care because you're a favourite. So Michel Pereira is going to be firmly in the bottom corner right here. And I think that is going to do it for our graph here. I think this is going to do it. Fluffy Hernandez has the most to gain. Michel Pereira has the most to lose. And this is pretty clear cut in my opinion. And that will do it for this video. So thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you would change in this. Let me know if you would keep it the same as this, same as I had, or if you would change this and where you would put certain fighters. Let me know your opinions. Let me know if I've got something catastrophically wrong. But as I said, thank you for watching the video. I hope you have a great day. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that great stuff. That really means a lot to me. It helps us push the channel, push the page to people who wouldn't normally see this. And yeah, man, I hope you're having an amazing day. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.